Hello, welcome back. Lecture 4, In and Out of Chinatown, they're being chunked, so first part of it. So our class is about ethnic identity, and I want to talk about one of the leading theorists that people use when they talk about identity, and they talk about how identity is formed. And actually, he's a geographer. His name is Jared Diamond. He wrote this book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And it's huge. It was epic. It made huge waves because he makes some really startling, extremely startling kind of assertions. So he won the Pulitzer for his book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And it's a brilliant book answering the question why people of certain continents succeed in invading other continents and conquering and displacing people, and why people are sometimes victimized. Well, he makes this argument that until 11,000 BC, we basically, Homo sapiens, were all the same. All over the world, before 11,000 BC, we're all the same. Okay? So why? Why were there some groups were able to get ahead and some groups actually behind, not behind, but some groups were not able to get ahead? Okay? Well, until 11,000 BC, all the people were still Stone Age hunters and gatherers. Now, at some point, a great divide occurred in all the rates that the human societies evolved. Now, think about it. Why? Now, let's use our racist mind, okay? Use our mind. And right now, in your mind, I want you to think of who is rated as, quote, the top group in terms of development. And let's think of who's rated in the middle group as development. And let's use our mind to rate the people who are rated the lowest that are undeveloped, right? Some people say third world or undeveloped, okay? So write it down or think it. All right, let's do it together. Now, at some point, a great divide we talked about happened, but how did this happen? Well, he makes a starting that has nothing to do with the people. So once again, Hitler was wrong. It has nothing to do with the people and their intelligences and etc. It had a lot to do with their geography, okay? So in Eurasia, parts of America and Africa, farming became the prevailing mode of existence when indigenous wild plants and animals were domesticated by prehistoric planters and herders. So think about it. If you have an environment where you can actually farm and you have animals where you can domesticate, keep together, right? Then you settle, right? People actually can divide their different, instead of hunt and gathering, everyone's got to hunt and gather, right? But if you had an environment where you have lush green and you can actually settle, and some people can just do one thing, they can centralize one thing, you can do other things, right, to develop your place. You can actually stay still, right? If you stay still, you don't have to carry everything on your back for hunting and gathering. You can actually develop further, right? So he argues that in certain parts of the world during this time, in the Americas, farming became the prevailing mode of existence because it had like really great domestic plants and animals that you could farm with, right? This is not the case for everyone. Can you domesticate a lion? No. What if you never had any horses around you? Well, if you don't have any horses around you, then again, that's going to have impact on your mobility. What if you had plants that were not domesticated or freely everywhere? All right, so Jared Diamond. Some people had a head start, right, over others. And it wasn't because they're smarter. It wasn't because they were superior genetically or racially superior, whatever that means. There's no such thing as race. We talked about in Answer 1. Actually, they just won the lottery in geographics. That's basically what happened, okay? So the first thing he said that some people had a head start, right, because they produced food and they had in producing food, and this would actually collide with pre-literate cultures, shaping modern world through conquest, displacement, and genocide. So basically what he's arguing is this. People who won the genetic geography lottery, those people were able to domesticate, those people actually stayed together, those people could differ their jobs and became stronger, right? Those are the same people that were able to conquer what? The hunters and gatherers, or people who didn't have the resources they had, right? So it wasn't because they're smarter or something. It's actually, it was just their environment, Okay, they can stay still where they can develop further, right? Where everyone else, right? If you live in a desert environment, you can't really plant plants, right? If your animals that are around you are deadly snakes, you really can't domesticate snakes, okay? And so those groups who actually who were ahead and had horses and could farm, those people were the ones who actually conquered the people who they didn't win the lottery in the environment in geography, and so that's what happened. Okay, the second thing is, and again, remember that when they displaced the other group, they did it in a very, very terrible way. They did a conquest and genocide. The second thing that Jared Diamond argues is modernization, and that is because of also climate and geography. So let's say you're living in a desert environment. It is hot. Okay. You can't really do a lot during the day, right? You're walking always looking for food, right? And let's think of, let's say if you had kind of a shady, kind of a pastoral environment, right? Very light weather, right? Well, you could go outside, you could farm, you could do all these things, right? And so that had a huge effect in modernization, right? You could build a house, you could build a farm, right? Other places you really couldn't build a house. Why would you build a house? Or a farm? You can't farm anything in the area. It's too hot, right? Why would you build a house when you have to move every 5 seconds to get more food, right? So this geography and climate had a lot to do with modernization. People who had the great geography and climate actually modernized, okay? Now, if you look at it, number 3, his point, Native Australians, Americans, and Africans could not colonize Europe because of geography, right? Look at their geography, look at Europe's geography. Vastly different, right? And that's his argument, okay? So he basically, Jared Diamond's book actually was a huge international bestseller. It actually got the Pulitzer, of course, and got like all the awards. It's been translated in all these different languages. And basically he kind of disrupts all this like, well, they're biologically inferior, or they're born that way, or there's something like inherent about them. No, he's arguing, actually it's just some people won the lottery in geography, some people didn't, right? And so it's huge. It's still also read in like most anthro classes. It's actually always read. And the fourth thing, right, we developed is actually germs. So the people who were able to domesticate, the people who were able to have farms, right, they actually grew immune to those germs that those animals gave to them, right? But imagine that you go to a new area of people and they're not immune to those germs that you historically for hundreds of years have acclimated to, right? Well, you kind of conquer them easier, right? Because, again, you actually create epidemics in that culture of people making them die, right? So with your germs. So again, that is also an element that Jared Diamond talks about. So his book, going back, Guns, Germs, and Steel, right? When you people who domesticated, also people who had guns because they became more modernized and they were able to develop a gun, and their germs and their steel, and that was one of the causes of major modernization. And it has nothing to do with kind of racial inferiority. So that's it. And that's something to think about when you think about identity, okay? Because one of his big arguments is identity is so much influenced by your environment, right? So much of your environment. And I've read a lot of different identity kind of pieces where people say there's a monsoon identity, right? Areas in Southeast Asia where there's a monsoon every year. And, those collective islands have a similar ethnic identity. So very interesting. I don't know, but if you agree or disagree. But Jared Diamond is actually, for this one, is well read. He got the Pulitzer, and it has been, looked upon, and I think a lot of people agree with his argument. So this actually can supersede sometimes your identity kind of argument. All right. If you're going to write a paper on your African American identity, okay, these are books that I recommend. Shades of Black, Socialization and Racial Identity Among Black Americans. Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together? Africans in Colonial Mexico. So these are a few African American resources. And again, I want you to go deep in your paper because I want you to talk about if you're light skinned or you're dark skinned and what does that have an effect on you. Now, if you want to look at Mexican American identity sources, right? You have of course, James Diego V. Hill, From Indians to Chicanos, Borderlands by Gloria Andazola. You have This Bridge Called My Back by Sherry Morango and Gloria Andazola, and we have Black Mexico. Okay, so those are just a few sources that you might want to look at if you're going to do this pace. Some of you won't, some of you will. Okay, all right. So our talk is on In and Out of Chinatown, and we're talking about ethnic identity. And actually, one of the interesting people that we talk about double ethnic identity is Dat Pham. And if you ever watched the show Last Comic Standing, he actually won it, and we'll listen to him for a clip.
Please welcome from San Diego, California, Dat Pham.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Jay Moore. He do it for you. Let's go on. He do it for you. He do it for you. Let's give a round of applause for Demo Down, my father. He do it for you here. He's the man. He's the one. Okay, come down here. I want to crack joke for you. We're going to do it right now. Here we go. I'm just kidding. I speak English. I'm just playing around. Her parents hate it when I do that. My mom's like, "Akbar, that's not funny. You want to make fun of us, huh? You want to make fun of Asian time? You want to be a smug alley? You want to smoke check in the alley? Pass a veil, pass a veil." Like, Mom, chill out. I know chill. I know chill, that fag. Don't tell me what to chill. I chill when I want to chill. I chill now because I want to chill. I chill you. Parents, I think they go nuts after a while, you know? I love my mom. She's like, "That fag, you don't watch cartoon, it's too violent. The cartoon is too violent." This is the same woman that goes, "That fag, you don't take out the trash now, I will kill you." I'm living my dream right now. I'm so thankful for that, you know, because, like, my mom's finally starting to get it, you know, like what I'm trying to do. Because before she thought I was nuts. Now she's, like, making fun of me. She's like, "That's my son, Dak Fang. He comedian. I want him to be doctor, but instead he like, ha ha ha. He cuckoo. He has one movie, 2 CD, 1 TV show, no money. I don't get it." But when I first started out, you know, my mom thought I was nuts. Seriously. She's like, "Dak Fang, were you crazy? Were you freaking time? Were you freaking time? What you doing? I give you money for school, for book, with Fung Lang." She calls him my dad like he's backup, like he's a cop or something. "Fung Lang Fang, come here. Fung Lang Fang. What you doing, Dak Fang, huh?" Like, "I want to be a comedian, Mom. I want to make America laugh." "No, you become a doctor. I laugh for you, haha. See, I can do it. One man, one woman show, Dak Fang. Fung Lang, come. Unit 411, come here. We have a situation. Your son go cuckoo." "Huh? I bought my own PA system." "Dak Fang, look what your son do. I give him money for school, for book. Look what he buy." My dad would check it out. "Hello? 2 Asian walk into a bar. 2 weeks later, they own it. Thank you. You guys have been awesome. Thank you very much."
Please welcome from San Diego.
All right, great. So he's a great introduction because he's actually Vietnamese, and if you look at the current Chinatown in our LA Chinatown, it's primarily Vietnamese and Vietnamese Chinese. All right, so this chapter by Min Zhou is titled In and Out of Chinatown. Okay, NYC, or New York City, is the second largest population of what? What is the second largest population of Asian population? Write it down. Write it down. It is Chinese, right? So yes, one of the second largest Asian population in New York is Chinese. So my first question is, what is an ethnic enclave? Okay, what is an ethnic enclave? Right, so let's answer together. So Min Zhou argues that an ethnic enclave is a Chinatown, okay? It's a place where it's primarily minorities who live in a city. And the city, generally, sometimes you think of Little Italy or think of a Koreatown or Tokyo Town. Those would be ethnic enclaves. So if you see, like, of course, our Little Italy has dwindled. Even our Chinatown has dwindled, but it actually has flourished again with double minorities, with these intra-ethnic minorities from different other parts of the world who are Chinese ethnic groups. And they moved to Chinatown, so pretty interesting. So throughout the class, I want to ask you the same question. Is it good to live in an ethnic minority? Is that assimilation? Is an ethnoburb, which is the Sangre Valley, which is ethnic communities that are suburbs, right? So the only difference between an ethnic enclave and an ethnic suburb is, again, there's many differences, but we're talking about spatial differences, is that one's a city and one's a suburb, okay? So is it good to live in a suburb? A lot of you guys, if you're from Cal Poly, live in suburbs, and particularly from the San Gabriel Valley, or let's say you're from Monterey Park, is that good to live in Monterey Park, or is it bad? I want you to think about that. Is that assimilated or not? All right, so there has been huge changes in Chinatown, the olden Chinatown and the new present Chinatown. We talked about, we opened up with Dat Pham. Our current Chinatown in LA is actually not really populated by, quote, Chinese, right? They're actually double minorities. A lot of them are actually minorities, again, from Vietnam who moved into Chinatown, and other ethnic double minorities from different parts of the world into Chinatown. So if you look at the beginning, in the 1850s, the majority of the Chinese were shipped to what coast? 7, right down. There's 2 coasts, so... well, right to left. So where were the Chinese originally shipped to? So someone scream it out. You are right if you said West Coast. Okay, so the majority of Chinese were shipped to the West Coast. Okay, and what job did they do? I'll give you a hint. Choo-choo. Right, so they were railroad men. Great. Now in the 1880s, there were 60,000 Chinese residents, but there are actually more. Why? Okay. Again, the numbers for Chinese, just like the numbers for Latinos, are very misleading, okay, because we do have a pretty large, quite large undocumented population. The discourse for undocumentation is primarily held by Latinos. I would say it's particularly in California, maybe it's a Mexican discourse, but actually there's lots and lots of undocumented Asians, like a lot, okay? If you've gone to these little dim sum shops, or you've been to these different parts of LA and you see people working at the counter, I guarantee you that some of them are not documented, and I guarantee you they're not making minimum wage. So $1 an hour or $2 an hour, and not uncommon in these ethnic enclaves, in these ethnoburbs. Okay, so yeah, so it said officially there are 60,000, but probably way more, just because undocumentation, and also the people who are defined as non-Chinese, but really they are Chinese. So for example, when I was going to UCLA, I had lots of roommates, and I had a girl who, she was from Mexico, and she was Chinese from Mexico. Okay, I was like, what? Okay. And we had another friend, she was like from the Philippines, but she's Chinese from the Philippines, right? And and there's the cultural Chinese from Taiwan or Hong Kong, and I am actually Chinese from Vietnam, but I was born in Hong Kong, so I guess that I was also part of the cultural diaspora. So all of us actually were not defined as Chinese. None of us were, because none of us were actually from the country of China. So thus, the numbers are not reflected. So that's another reason why that whenever you look at the Chinese numbers, it's never really as accurate as the actual number. Now, according to assimilation theories, Chinatown population should blank, but instead it has blank. Now, so let's go back to the Gaines and 1920 model of assimilation, right? So European assimilation, they come to America, first generation, they speak French, Italian, German. Second generation, their kids lose it a bit, and they go to college, go to school, and by third generation, they lose it fully, and they're American. Right, so that is the assimilation model. If you guys, all the social majors, you guys are bobbing your head. You've probably heard this a million times. This classic assimilation models, yes. So that means by the third generation, all minorities should assimilate, right? So that's a classic. It's called the ethnic American assimilation model. Lots of studies on that. Social majors are probably bored right now. So if we look at this, let's look at Chinatown. if we use the classic assimilation models on that, let's think about it. Over time, Chinatown population should go up or down. So the Chinatown population should go up or down because Chinese people have been here before the 1880s. Let's say they started in 1848, right, when they invited Chinese. So for some Chinese, they've been here for a long time. Some of the recent immigrants have come post-1965. So let's look at the European assimilation models, right? Some people fourth, fifth generation. Some people second generation, okay? So according to the European-based assimilation models, sociology majors, should Chinatown population go up or should it go down, right? So now we're going the second generation, the third generation. So it should slowly go what? Down. Right? That is the model, right? So if you look at these classes, it should go down, but it doesn't. And instead, it has what? Has increased, right? So that actually goes against all these classical simulation models that we have, right? Chinatown has not gone down in population. Actually, it has increased, okay? So really, is assimilation occurring or is it not? A lot of Chinese people are moving out, but then these new Chinese people are moving in, these double minorities from other parts of the world that are not defined as Chinese. All right, so let's take a look at Flushing, New York. Now, if anyone's been to New York, wonderful place. Get there. It's like $200 plane trip. Just go there and stay in a hostel for $20. Just do it. All right. All right. So New York is a wonderful place, and they have suburbs, and one of the suburbs is Flushing, New York. They call it ethnoburb because it's kind of like a Monterey Park. It's a suburb, but it's primarily made up of Chinese. Right? So the Chinatown Chinese, the ones who've kind of been more affluent, they'll move out of Chinatown, but they'll move into a suburb, but that suburb is primarily Chinese. So a good example is Flushing, New York. Okay? It is a huge Chinese community. And actually, so that the model, the ethnic American model, the population should go down, but actually new immigrants, or Chinese immigrants from other parts of the world actually fill those spaces up, okay, and make it increase. So now the Chinese population is quite different, actually. Before, in the past, the Chinese came primarily from China, right? They came from China, right? Southern China, Cantonese speakers, right? But now the new Chinese are so diverse, right? They're coming from Taiwan and, think of it, guys, think in your mind, what are the two other places? Taiwan and where? Well, now you have other places they come from. Hong Kong, Singapore, right? Pretty huge, and other parts of, I think, mainland China and all other parts of the diasporic world. So now they're coming from lots and lots of places, right? There's a huge difference between Chinese now and Chinese then. We talked about the huge illiteracy and poverty of the original Chinese who came. But the new Chinese have higher occupation status, right? Some of them have already degrees. They have lower poverty rates, okay, and they have much more higher educational status, okay. So if you saw one of my last lectures, we showed something. Zhou was actually the comedian. That guy has a PhD actually, I think from some Texas college. So again, there is big differences between the Chinese now and Chinese then. All right, so let's take a break, and I'll be back in 5 minutes.